The late summer evening hung heavy and quiet over the cul-de-sac, the kind of thick stillness that made every cricket chirp sound like an alarm. From his living room window, Evan, the homeowner and EV enthusiast, watched the last streaks of orange bleed from the sky. His white Tesla Model 3 rested in the driveway, plugged into the high-speed charger he had installed 2 months earlier, a project he'd proudly completed after a maze of permits and an eye-watering electrician's bill. Evan had chosen this time of day carefully. Dusk was perfect for his experiment. Earlier in the week, his utility bill had spiked for the 3rd month in a row, showing late-night power draws far higher than what his own charging schedule could explain. At first, he'd blamed software glitches. Then he noticed the faint scuff marks on the concrete near the charger and the way the cable was sometimes coiled differently than he'd left it. Something, or someone, was siphoning his electricity. He armed his new motion-activated cameras, hidden inside 2 fake garden gnomes, and brewed a strong cup of coffee. He wasn't just guarding his wallet anymore, he wanted proof. Around 10:30 p.m., the quiet settled deeper. Evan dimmed the lights and sat in the darkened living room, the soft glow of the security monitor his only illumination. On the screen, the driveway looked almost silver under the moonlight. Nothing stirred, then a flicker. Headlights appeared briefly at the far end of the street before shutting off. A black SUV, familiar. Evan leaned forward, heart ticking faster. He recognized the vehicle immediately. Marcus Lane, the Waugh Board's vice president, owned that exact model. Marcus, with his crisp polo shirts and reputation for enforcing every obscure rule in the homeowner's covenant, from mailbox paint color to lawn watering times. The SUV coasted silently to the curb, engine barely humming. Its lights stayed off. Evan muted the television, though there was nothing to hear but the faint hiss of night air. Marcus stepped out, glancing left and right. He wore a baseball cap pulled low, like a spy in a bargain bin thriller. Under one arm, he carried an extension cord, his own heavy-duty cable. Evan's disbelief tangled with anger. The Waugh vice president, the man who once fined a neighbor for leaving a trash can out too long, was about to steal electricity. Marcus moved with the confidence of practice. He unlatched Evan's charging flap, disconnected the existing cable, and snapped his own cord into place with a quiet but unmistakable click. The camera's infrared made his motions ghostly and sharp. He opened his SUV's charge port and began feeding on Evan's power like it was his birthright. Evan's fist tightened around his coffee mug. He thought about bursting through the door, phone recording, and catching Marcus red-handed. But another idea, more strategic, stilled him. Better to let the camera roll, to gather undeniable evidence. A confrontation now might lead to excuses, denials, maybe even a counter-complaint. Video proof would end all debate. Minutes stretched. The soft blue glow from Marcus's SUV confirmed a steady charge. Marcus leaned against the car, scrolling his phone, utterly at ease. Evan could almost hear the silent taunt. What's yours is mine. Evan's mind raced through the absurdity. He remembered Marcus at the last Waugh meeting lecturing about community standards and personal responsibility. The same man now poaching electricity worth pennies yet betraying pounds of hypocrisy. A sudden breeze rattled the bushes, making Marcus glance around. He froze for a heartbeat, then relaxed when nothing emerged. Inside, Evan tapped a silent notification on his phone, activating the second part of his plan, a subtle security light that flicked on near the charger but nowhere else. A narrow beam illuminated Marcus like a stage spotlight. Marcus jumped, twisting toward the house. His cap nearly slipped off. The SUV's headlights flared automatically with the movement, reflecting off the charger's polished surface. Evan's cameras caught every micro-expression. Panic, calculation, a forced calm. Marcus yanked the cord from his own vehicle, fumbling as he tried to coil it without noise. He dropped the plug, cursed under his breath, and finally managed to shove the cord back into a duffel bag. Evan remained perfectly still behind the curtain, heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and satisfaction. The footage was crystal clear. Marcus climbed back into the SUV, started the engine, and reversed slowly down the street, never once looking at the house again. When silence reclaimed the night, Evan exhaled, realizing he'd been holding his breath. He replayed the footage, each frame a triumph, the close-up of Marcus's face, the unmistakable Waugh badge dangling from his keychain, the glowing charge indicator on the SUV. Proof. But the victory was only half sweet. Beneath the excitement simmered frustration. This wasn't just a neighborly spat, it was a breach of trust. Evan thought about the next Waugh meeting scheduled for the weekend. Would Marcus pretend nothing had happened? Would he deny it all until confronted with evidence? Evan pictured himself standing before the board, remote in hand, playing the video on a projector. The room would go silent as Marcus's late-night escapade unfolded for everyone to see. The thought steadied him. Still, Evan wasn't ready to strike. One night of proof might not silence a practiced manipulator. What if Marcus claimed it was a one-time emergency? Evan needed more. A pattern, not an isolated clip. He set the cameras to save the footage to both the cloud and a hidden hard drive. Then he configured an automatic alert. If the charger activated between midnight and 5 a.m., his phone would buzz instantly. Finally, Evan stepped outside. The driveway smelled faintly of ozone and warm asphalt. He touched the charging port. It was slightly warm, evidence of recent use. The moon hung low, indifferent. He smiled, not with glee but with a quiet resolve. Tonight proved his instincts right. The Hoa's self-appointed enforcer had been caught stealing electricity under the very rules he claimed to uphold. As Evan re-entered the house, he whispered to himself, game on. The following evening unfolded like a carefully staged experiment. Evan woke early, brewed a double-shot espresso, and spent the day replaying the footage of Marcus's midnight theft until every detail was seared into his mind. Each frame, from the sly glance over the shoulder to the frantic coil of cable, was a small masterpiece of hypocrisy. But Evan knew that in the court of neighborhood politics, one night's proof might not survive the spin of an Waugh veteran like Marcus. He needed more than a lucky capture. He needed a clean, repeatable trap that would stand up to any denial. So, all morning, he planned. Upgrading the trap. Evan opened a new box on his workbench, a compact motion sensor spotlight, a weatherproof microphone, and a slim SD card recorder. He also had a clever addition, a small Wi-Fi-enabled relay wired into his charger's power line. With a few taps on his phone, he could cut the flow of electricity at any moment, a silent switch hidden behind a generic, smart home app. By late afternoon the sun beat down on the quiet cul-de-sac, neighbors mowing lawns or pulling weeds. Evan pretended to tidy his flower beds, but each move was calculated. He adjusted camera angles inside the garden gnomes, checked the microphone levels, and synced every device to cloud storage. He imagined Marcus's face when he realized the charger had gone cold mid-theft. Would he panic? Would he check the cable, fumble with his car's settings, maybe even reveal his guilt with a frustrated outburst? That audio could be gold. Evan wasn't interested in revenge for its own sake. It was about boundaries, respect, and a small lesson in accountability. Marcus had fined half the neighborhood for trivialities. If anyone needed a mirror held up to his behavior, it was the man who quoted bylaws like scripture. Waiting for darkness. Twilight arrived in a soft wash of lavender and orange. Evan's Tesla sat in the driveway once again, freshly polished, charging cable coiled neatly. From the outside, nothing looked different. Inside, the house was a command center. Evan arranged 3 monitors on his desk, one for the driveway camera, another for the street view camera, and a third for the real-time power draw from the charger. He dimmed the lights, settled into his chair, and let the night wrap around the neighborhood. The hours crept by. At 10:15 p.m., the street fell silent except for a distant barking dog. Evan's eyelids drooped. The adrenaline from the previous night had faded into a slow hum. He sipped water, eyes never leaving the screens. Then, at 11:07, motion detection triggered a soft chime. A pair of headlights flared at the edge of the monitor. Dash dash dash. The return of Marcus. The black SUV again. Engine low, lights flicked off well before the cul-de-sac. Evan's pulse quickened. The pattern repeated, almost as if Marcus had a secret schedule. Marcus stepped out, the brim of his cap tugged lower tonight. He scanned the quiet street with a practiced sweep. In his hand, the same heavy-duty extension cord. Evan's charger app confirmed a sudden spike as Marcus disconnected the Tesla's cable and inserted his own. A green indicator lit on the SUV's dashboard. Evan tapped his phone to start audio recording. The microphone hidden near the charger picked up the soft metallic click, the shuffle of shoes on concrete. He could hear Marcus muttering under his breath, indistinct words, but the irritation of someone performing a routine chore. The hypocrisy still amazed Evan. Here was the self-styled guardian of neighborhood standards, stealing electricity like a kid sneaking cookies. Dash dash dash. The sting activates. Evan waited until the SUV's charge indicator reached a steady rhythm. Then he tapped the second icon on his phone, power off. The effect was immediate. The blue glow on Marcus's dashboard vanished. A faint relay click came through the microphone, followed by silence. Marcus straightened, puzzled. He jiggled the charger handle, then crouched to inspect the plug. A low, frustrated, "What the?" escaped him. Evan's camera zoomed automatically, catching the crease of confusion across Marcus's face. Marcus pulled the connector out, shoved it back in. Nothing. He tapped at his car's touchscreen, muttering again. "Come on, charge." The microphone caught every syllable. For a full minute Marcus fiddled, stepping back to check his own equipment. His irritation sharpened into suspicion. He looked toward the house, eyes narrowing as if sensing an audience. Evan remained perfectly still in the dark, heart thundering. He imagined Marcus wondering if he'd been discovered. Marcus knelt again, tracing the cable to the charger box. He pressed the reset button. Still nothing. Stupid thing, he hissed. Then he pulled out his phone, scrolling through screens, perhaps searching for a charging station or trying to diagnose an error code. The gnome camera caught the glow of his phone screen illuminating his worried face. Dash dash dash. An unexpected visitor. Just then, a car door slammed across the street. Evan's neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, stepped onto her porch, her small dog tugging at its leash. She froze when she noticed Marcus crouched by Evan's driveway. "Marcus, is that you?" she called, puzzled. Marcus jerked upright, almost tripping over the cord. "Oh, yeah, hi, Maria. Just, helping Evan with some electrical, testing." Mrs. Alvarez tilted her head. At 11 o'clock at night, Marcus forced a chuckle. "Yeah, you know, off-peak rates. He asked me to check something for him." Her dog barked once, suspicious. She said slowly. "Well, good night then." "Night." Marcus waved too brightly. As soon as she disappeared inside, he exhaled audibly, muttered something sharp under his breath, and began packing up the cord. Evan caught every moment. The startled lie, the nervous fumble, the frantic glance toward the streetlight. Dash dash dash. The perfect capture. Marcus finally shoved the cord into his duffel bag and retreated to the SUV. The engine started, headlights staying off until he rounded the corner. Evan sat back, adrenaline still buzzing. The footage was pristine. High-definition video of Marcus attempting to charge, the exact timestamp of the power cut, the audio of his frustrated mutters and, best of all, the unscripted exchange with Mrs. Alvarez. A neutral witness had inadvertently confirmed his presence. Evan replayed the sequence, zooming in on Marcus's startled face when the power died. The satisfaction was sharper than he expected, not spiteful, just the clean justice of facts. He immediately backed up the files to 3 locations: cloud storage, an external hard drive, and a thumb drive hidden in a kitchen drawer. This wasn't just evidence for a petty dispute, it was a record of Marcus's character. Dash dash dash. Preparing the reveal. With the second night's footage secured, Evan allowed himself a grin. Now he could confront Marcus on solid ground. But how? A public ambush at the HOA meeting. A private conversation first. He pictured the options. Option 1. Send Marcus a single still frame with no message, let paranoia gnaw at him. Option 2. Wait for the next wall gathering and play the video in full, the neighborhood gasping as Marcus's midnight escapade played on a projector screen. Option 3. Present it quietly to the entire board, forcing Marcus to face his peers. Each idea had its appeal. Evan wanted accountability, but he also wanted to keep the moral high ground. Marcus might try to twist the story, claim a misunderstanding, or even accuse Evan of entrapment. The clearer the proof, the fewer the escape routes. He decided on patience. One more night of data would be unassailable. Dash dash dash. Quiet triumph. Evan stepped outside to breathe in the cool midnight air. The driveway looked peaceful, moonlight reflecting off the Tesla's glossy hood. Only he knew the tension that had unfolded here minutes earlier. He touched the charger, cool and inert now, and allowed himself a small, quiet laugh. 2 nights, Marcus, he whispered to the dark. Keep coming. Back inside, he checked the gnome cameras one last time and powered down the monitors. Tomorrow, he thought, he would print still shots for his records. The trap had worked flawlessly. As he finally climbed into bed, the soft glow of the moon spilled across the floor. He felt no guilt, only a calm sense of justice. Marcus wanted free power, Evan wanted respect. Tonight the balance had shifted. The morning sun spilled over the rooftops, gilding the cul-de-sac in soft gold. Evan stood at his kitchen window, sipping coffee and replaying the previous night's footage for what felt like the 100th time. 2 nights of perfect, high-definition proof. Every incriminating detail of Marcus's late-night charging spree was safely backed up in 3 locations. He could confront Marcus today. He should confront Marcus today. Yet Evan held back. The strategist in him whispered, one more night. 3 separate incidents would silence any claim of coincidence or one-time emergency. Still, the idea of sitting through another evening of quiet surveillance left him restless. So instead of simply waiting, Evan decided to add a final twist to his plan, a calculated payback that was clever rather than cruel, the kind that would leave Marcus speechless but unharmed. Dash dash dash. Crafting the final trap. By mid-morning Evan was back in his garage with a toolkit, laying out supplies like a magician preparing a trick. Smart outlet relay, check. Automated siren module, normally used for security systems, check. LED strobe light borrowed from last year's Halloween setup, check. He connected each piece into a small, weatherproof junction box mounted discreetly behind the charger. With a few lines of code in the companion app, he created a chain reaction. Greater than if the charger detects an unauthorized connection after midnight. Then cut power, trigger the siren, and flash the strobe light for 10 seconds. It wouldn't hurt anyone. It would simply scare the daylights out of whoever was stealing power, and produce footage Marcus could never explain away. Evan tested the system in daylight. The instant he unplugged and replugged the charger, the strobe pulsed like lightning and the siren emitted a sharp, high-pitched wail. Perfect. Dusk anticipation. That evening, a pale moon rose early. Evan parked his Tesla as usual, charger coiled neatly like bait on a hook. He double-checked that the new system was armed and the known cameras were recording. Inside, the house was quiet except for the low hum of his monitors. He ate a simple dinner, though excitement dulled his appetite. Every few minutes he checked the live feeds, his phone resting on the desk like a detonator. By 10 p.m., the neighborhood slipped into stillness. Porch lights blinked out one by one. Evan felt a familiar tension coil in his chest. Would Marcus dare to return a third night in a row? Surely he must suspect something after the mysterious outage the previous evening. The bait is taken. At 11:12 p.m., the motion sensor chime sounded. Headlights flared briefly at the far end of the street, then vanished. Evan's pulse leapt. The black SUV glided into the cul-de-sac like a shadow. Marcus stepped out, hat pulled even lower, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Tonight his movements were brisk but wary. He glanced around repeatedly, pausing to listen. Evan grinned faintly. He's nervous. Good. Marcus approached the driveway, kneeling by the charger. The cameras captured every deliberate motion as he unplugged Evan's cable and snapped his own connector into place. The Tesla app chimed softly. Unauthorized draw detected. Evan waited a few seconds to ensure a steady charge, then tapped the command on his phone. Activate trap. The payback ignites. The result was instantaneous. A deafening siren erupted, shrill enough to slice through the night air. Simultaneously, a blinding strobe burst to life, splashing the driveway in harsh, pulsating white light. The known cameras caught the scene in perfect clarity, Marcus flinching violently, eyes wide, hands flying up as if under attack. Whoa, what the? His shout was nearly drowned by the siren. He scrambled backward, tripping over his own cord, then spun toward the house. The flashing light turned his face a rapid sequence of fear and confusion. He yanked the plug from his SUV, fumbling with the cable like a man disarming a bomb. Neighbors' porch lights flicked on up and down the street. Curtains rustled. A dog barked furiously. Marcus, panicked, tried to silence the charger by slapping the control box, but the siren wailed on. He looked like a burglar caught in a sudden spotlight, because, in a way, he was. Witnesses gather. Within moments, two neighbors stepped onto their porches. Mrs. Alvarez, leash in hand, again squinted across the street. Marcus, what on earth is happening? Another neighbor, Dan from 3 houses down, called out, everything okay over there? Marcus stammered, yeah, electrical short. Evan asked me to, check it. His voice cracked over the blare. Evan, watching through the monitor, almost laughed. Marcus's flimsy excuse sounded even weaker under the banshee wail of the siren. Evan decided it was time to step into the open. He slipped on a hoodie, grabbed his phone, still recording, and walked calmly onto the porch. The strobe bathed him in flickering light as he raised his voice. Marcus. Care to explain why you're using my charger at midnight? All eyes turned to him. The siren continued its relentless shriek. Marcus froze, caught between fight and flight. Evan, hey, I was just helping. Thought I'd check. Helping yourself to my electricity, you mean? Evan said, keeping his tone level. Mrs. Alvarez gasped softly. Dan folded his arms, clearly intrigued. The confrontation. Marcus took a step forward, palms out. It's not what it looks like. It looks like you've been stealing power for 3 nights, Evan replied. He held up his phone, showing the live feed of Marcus crouched at the charger moments earlier. I have full video, Marcus. From every angle, with audio. The siren finally timed out, leaving an echoing hush broken only by a distant dog still barking. The sudden silence made Evan's next words carry like a gavel strike. You've been caught. Marcus's shoulders slumped. Look, my home charger's been acting up. I meant to tell you, I was gonna pay. Then you asked, Evan interrupted, voice firm. You don't sneak around in the middle of the night. Neighbors murmured their agreement. Someone muttered, unbelievable. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it again, and finally dropped his gaze. I'm sorry, he said quietly, the words almost swallowed by the night. Restoring order. Evan took a breath, temper steady. Here's what's going to happen. You'll cover the cost of the electricity you took, and you'll explain this to the WA board. I have every minute recorded, including last night when Mrs. Alvarez saw you. Mrs. Alvarez nodded firmly. I saw him clear as day, she added. Marcus gave a small, defeated nod. Okay, I will. I'll make it right. Evan studied him for a moment, weighing anger against relief. Then he said, good. Because if you don't, this video goes to the entire neighborhood and the police if necessary. Marcus swallowed hard. Understood. Aftermath. Marcus packed his cord without another word and drove off, taillights disappearing into the dark. Slowly, neighbors drifted back inside, some shaking their heads, others whispering. Evan exhaled, the adrenaline ebbing. The driveway smelled faintly of ozone, the strobe light still casting soft after images on the concrete. He shut down the system with a single tap and patted the garden gnome camera affectionately. Back in the quiet of his living room, he replayed the live capture. Marcus startled by the blinding lights, neighbors witnessing the confrontation, the priceless expression of defeat. It was all there, undeniable and unspinnable. For the first time in days, Evan felt truly at ease. He didn't need vengeance. The truth had already done the heavy lifting. Marcus would face the WA board and his own hypocrisy. The neighborhood now knew exactly who had been siphoning power under the cover of night. Evan poured himself a final cup of coffee and stepped onto the porch. The night air was cool and still, the moon a pale coin overhead. He smiled faintly. The trap had worked, not out of malice, but as a clear boundary. Respect earned, lesson delivered. Saturday morning dawned bright and deceptively calm. A warm breeze rustled the maple leaves as Evan wheeled his laptop bag out to the car. Inside the bag sat 3 USB drives and a printed packet of utility statements, evidence prepared like exhibits in a courtroom trial. The monthly homeowners association meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock in the community recreation hall, a squad brick building at the end of the street. Normally these gatherings droned on about landscaping budgets and mailbox repairs. Today would be different. Evan could already feel the charged anticipation in his chest. Arriving at the hall. By the time he arrived, the parking lot buzzed with Saturday chatter. Neighbors milled about with coffee cups, unaware of the coming drama. Evan exchanged polite nods and walked inside, where folding chairs formed a semicircle around a dented podium. At the center of it all sat Marcus Lane, vice president of the WA, crisp as ever in a navy polo and khaki slacks. His expression was composed, but a fleeting tightness around his eyes betrayed sleeplessness. He glanced up when Evan entered, then quickly looked down at his notes. Evan felt a ripple of satisfaction. He knows something's coming. Opening business. The meeting began with routine formalities. Clara Bennett, the WA president, called the room to order. First on the agenda, budget for next quarter's landscaping improvements, she said, adjusting her glasses. Neighbors raised points about sprinkler timing and pothole repairs. Evan barely heard them. He waited, heart thumping, fingers tapping the USB drive in his pocket. When Clara reached community concerns, Evan raised his hand. Yes, Evan, Clara said. I have a serious matter. He began, standing. It concerns theft of electricity and violation of law trust. A murmur swept through the crowd. Marcus stiffened in his seat. Presenting the case. Evan stepped to the podium and set his laptop on the stand. Over the past week, someone has repeatedly used my personal EV charger without permission, he said, voice steady. After noticing unusual spikes in my utility bill, I installed hidden cameras. What I captured is very clear. He inserted the USB drive and opened a video file. The lights dimmed slightly as the projector flickered to life on the blank wall behind the board. The first clip rolled. Night 1. Grainy infrared footage showed Marcus's black SUV easing into Evan's driveway. The crowd gasped softly as Marcus stepped out, hood low, and connected the charging cable. Evan narrated calmly. This was recorded at 10:45 p.m. on Tuesday. Someone whispered, "That's Marcus." The second clip followed. Night 2. High-definition color captured Marcus again, the charger suddenly losing power, his puzzled expression illuminated by the driveway light. Audio of his muttered, "Come on, charge," filled the room. A few neighbors chuckled. Then came the third clip. Night 3. The siren, the flashing strobe, Marcus's startled shout, every moment in vivid clarity. Laughter and exclamations erupted. Clara covered her mouth in disbelief. "Oh my goodness," she said. The cross-examination. Evan turned to the board. 3 separate nights. The utility company has verified increased usage consistent with these times. I present these statements for the record. He handed copies to Clara and the treasurer. The room buzzed with murmurs. Finally, Clara faced Marcus. "Marcus, do you have anything to say?" All eyes pivoted to him. Marcus cleared his throat, voice tight. My home charger failed. I intended to reimburse Evan. I simply intended." A neighbor interrupted. "Then why sneak around after midnight?" Marcus flushed. "I didn't want to bother anyone late. I thought it would be temporary." Evan held his gaze. "If it was innocent, why lie to Mrs. Alvarez when she caught you in my driveway?" Mrs. Alvarez, seated near the front, raised her hand. "He told me he was testing something for you." That was clearly untrue. A murmur of agreement spread. Marcus's composure cracked. "Look, I made a mistake. I should have asked. I'm sorry. The board deliberates." Clara exchanged a long look with the other board members. "Marcus, this is a serious violation of our community's trust and of property rights," she said firmly. "Not to mention the HOA's own bylaws about theft of services." The treasurer, a soft-spoken man named Henry, added, "This could expose us to liability if the homeowner pressed charges. We can't ignore it." Marcus opened his mouth but found no words. Clara turned back to Evan. "Would you like to propose a resolution?" Evan took a breath. "I'm not seeking revenge. I simply ask for reimbursement for the electricity and for Marcus to step down from his law position. And I'd like a formal note in the meeting minutes to discourage any similar behavior." The crowd hummed with approval. Someone clapped quietly. Public response. Neighbors began voicing their thoughts. "I got a warning last year for leaving my trash can out for 12 hours, said Dan from 3 houses down. "If I'd done what Marcus did, I'd have been fined on the spot." "Exactly," another added. "Rules should apply to everyone." Mrs. Alvarez nodded. "He abused the trust we place in our board." Marcus shifted uncomfortably, face pale. Clara raised her hand for silence. All in favor of Evan's resolution. Hands shot up across the room, nearly unanimous. Only Marcus kept his arms rigidly at his sides. "It's decided," Clara announced. "Marcus Lane is hereby removed from his position as vice president of the law effective immediately. He will reimburse Evan for all costs within 30 days and issue a written apology to the community." A round of subdued applause followed. Marcus lowered his head. After the vote, the remainder of the meeting passed quickly, but the usual mundane discussions felt lighter, energized by the collective sense of justice served. When it adjourned, neighbors gathered around Evan, offering handshakes and supportive pats on the back. "You handled that with class, Mrs. Alvarez told him. "Not everyone would have been so patient." "Thanks for speaking up," said Dan. "That guy's been throwing his weight around for years." Evan smiled modestly. "I just wanted fairness, and maybe a little accountability." Across the room, Marcus packed his briefcase in silence. For a moment, Evan considered approaching him, but Marcus avoided eye contact and slipped out a side door. A private exchange. Outside, the late morning sun warmed the asphalt. Evan loaded his laptop bag into the car when he heard a voice behind him. "Evan," he turned. Marcus stood a few feet away, hands jammed in his pockets, the crispness of his outfit now rumpled. His voice was low. "I deserve that. All of it." Evan regarded him carefully. "I'm not out to ruin you, Marcus. I just wanted it to stop." "I know," Marcus said, eyes on the ground. "I don't know what I was thinking. My charger broke, I panicked about costs, and I figured one night wouldn't matter. Then it snowballed." He exhaled heavily. "I'll pay you back this week." Evan nodded. "Thank you, and for what it's worth, I hope this is a turning point, not just a punishment." Marcus gave a small, grateful nod. "It will be." They parted without a handshake but with a fragile understanding. Community renewal. Over the next few days, a subtle shift rippled through the neighborhood. People chatted more on evening walks, smiled a little easier. The drama had reminded everyone that even in a quiet cul-de-sac, accountability mattered. Marcus followed through promptly. An envelope arrived in Evan's mailbox with a cashier's check covering the estimated electricity plus a handwritten note. "I'm truly sorry for violating your trust, Marcus." Evan read it twice, feeling the tension finally ease. He filed the letter away, not as a trophy, but as closure. A calm evening. 1 week later, Evan stood on his porch at dusk. The Tesla gleamed in the fading light, charger humming quietly, undisturbed. Crickets chirped. A neighbor's grill sent a wisp of smoky aroma into the air. Peace had returned. He reflected on the whirlwind of the past week. Suspicion, surveillance, the trap, the confrontation, and the public reckoning. Through it all, he'd never raised his voice or sought revenge. He'd simply insisted on fairness and transparency, and the neighborhood had rallied around that principle. Evan smiled, feeling the kind of quiet satisfaction that comes not from outsmarting someone, but from restoring balance. The lesson was clear. Boundaries matter, and truth, when revealed, has its own power.